Ever feel like you got handed this instruction manual, right? Like a guidebook for your life, but it's written in some ancient language that nobody understands.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We're talking about DNA, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
This little strand of, well, stuff that basically dictates everything about us. It's like why you love spicy food or why I, for example, can never seem to find pants long enough.
It's true, though. That's what's so amazing about DNA, right? It really is the code that makes you you. It's just
Yeah.
mind-bogglingly complex.
That's the thing. It can be so overwhelming. But that's what we're here for today, to do a deep dive into one specific aspect of this whole DNA thing, the part that shapes how we look.
Exactly. We're talking about physical traits, those features that you can, well, see, and how those traits are determined by our genes.
Genes, right. So can you remind us again, what exactly is a gene?
Yeah, so a gene, it's basically a tiny little section of DNA. You can almost think of it as like one specific instruction within that massive instruction manual we were talking about.
Okay, so if DNA is the whole library, a gene is like a single book in that library.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And we found this really cool source that explains this whole gene thing in a super fun way. It's written as a dialogue, almost like a conversation between a gene and a teenager.
And let's be honest, that dynamic is probably pretty relatable for a lot of us, feeling like our genes are making all these decisions without asking us.
Huh? Totally. But for our deep dive, let's start with something super simple. Eye color. I mean, we've all looked around and noticed that people have different colored eyes. So what's the deal with that? What makes someone have blue eyes versus brown eyes?
Right, so this is one of those things where it seems really simple on the surface. Like, oh, eye color, one gene, that's it.
Right, like one gene for blue eyes, one for brown eyes, maybe one for green.
If only it were that easy. In reality, it's actually way more complicated. There are multiple genes that influence eye color, but the way they usually explain it is with dominant and recessive genes.
Dominant and recessive. Okay, break that down for me. What do those words even mean in normal people language?
Okay, so imagine you get two sets of instructions for eye color, one from your mom and one from your dad.
Right. Makes sense we get stuff from both parents.
Now, a dominant gene, you can think of it like a strong preference, like it's written in Sharpie marker. A recessive gene, it's more like a suggestion, written in pencil.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
So if you have one brown eye gene, which is dominant, and one blue eye gene, which is recessive, those brown eyes are probably going to be pretty dominant. Like you can still see it even if you try to erase the Sharpie.
Oh, that's why brown eyes are so common. It's the genetic Sharpie taking over.
Yeah, pretty much. But of course, there are always exceptions, right? You get these really interesting combinations and mutations, and that's how you end up with like hazel eyes or green eyes, or even like one blue eye and one brown eye.
Whoa, that's amazing. Okay, so we've talked about eye color. Let's move on to something a little more, height. Why are some of us vertically challenged while others are out there, practically touching the ceiling?
Well, height is interesting because it's not just about your genes, it's a combination of things. Environment actually plays a huge role. Like, were you well-nourished as a child? Did you get enough sleep? Even things like sunlight can make a difference.
So it's not like my parents passed down some short genes and that was it.
It's not quite that simple. Think of it this way. Your genes are like the blueprint for your potential height.
Okay.
But then your environment, your lifestyle, all that stuff, that determines whether you reach that full potential or not.
So you're saying, if I'd eaten all my vegetables as a kid, I might have been a basketball star.
Maybe not a basketball star. But you get the idea. It's this whole interplay of nature and nurture. Both are important.
That is super cool. Okay, so last but not least, we have to talk about hair. Because, honestly, hair genetics, it's like someone took a bunch of genes, threw them in a blender, and said, let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah. Hair genetics are incredibly complex.
Because it's not just like, oh, you inherit curly hair or straight hair. There's like a million variations in between. You've got wavy hair, kinky hair, coily hair, that weird in-between hair that can't decide what it wants to do.
Right. And there are genes for hair thickness, hair color, even like the shape of your hair follicles. And it's not just one gene for each thing. It's multiple genes working together or sometimes working against each other.
So to our listeners out there, I want to know, what physical trait have you always wondered about? Is there something you see in yourself or your family members that just makes you go, wait, how did that happen?
Because that's the thing about genetics. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. We're all walking, talking mysteries, shaped by this incredible, intricate code that we're only just beginning to understand.